Hey, welcome to Guitar Knobs, the guitars, gear, noise, and nonsense podcast, hosted today by these knobs.
Tony Dudzik, pick Guardian.
Jared Brandon, as Jared Brandon, is not here. He's being Jared Brandon, getting his house moved, and unfortunately couldn't join us today. Boo. It was very sad. Boo-hoo, boo-hoo.
No, don't boo Jared.
In his place.
In his place is...
Rob Chafe.
Actually, not in his place. He's just here because he's
not in
part
his
of the
place.
thing. So
Technically, Tony's in his place.
I'm actually
Yes.
sitting in Jared's
that
place.
is
and
true.
I'm in Tony's
Hey,
place.
everybody, it's me, Todd Novak. Welcome to the Guitar Knobs podcast. We are thrilled to death that you are listening to our show. Hopefully, again, and for the first time, that's even super exciting, too. We're going to have a great show today.
What's it about, Todd?
Well, it's changed. Because originally, if this was the episode, and we were featuring Andy Ferris, the guitar geek, who just informed us, so he's in Austria right now. He just informed us he's actually encountered a pretty severe storm, and his
No power,
and his mobile tower has been knocked out, and so he had to go up the road to, call us and let us know what's going on. So we're going to have him on in a upcoming episode very, very soon. It won't be like months out. It's going to be like right around the corner.
Drive
Okay?
safely, Andy.
Yes, please. We're really excited to have him on. In the meantime, if you haven't, if you're not familiar with that, go look him up on YouTube. He's a
stuff.
really approachable, fun chap, and we're looking forward to talking with him on the show.
And he's got a big head of hair.
He's got a very sustainable melon. Yes, I guess for lack of better terms. It's I'm jealous of any of that
I was
stuff.
going to ask
Yeah.
if you were jealous, but I didn't want to be rude about it.
Yeah.
So, anyways, so in his stead, what we are doing, this is we got a couple working titles. The first one is Big Fat Medley.
I'm offended by that.
Well, that's
No comment.
by the medley part. Or?
Yeah, the medley part.
Boy. Anyways, so but that's cool because there's a lot of stuff going on in the guitar world right now, and so we're going to take the opportunity to cover off on a lot of that stuff.
We're going to make lemonade out of lemons.
That is true. I also want to just kind of give a nod to some of the awesome upcoming guests. We've got Native Audio coming up. We've got Uncle Amps coming up. We've got Chris Gill from he was the editorialist from several magazines.
Oh, wow.
So we have several guitar magazines. He did the Van Halen book.
Oh, yeah, that's
show.
right. That's right.
We're gonna do a
Right there.
a 101 on Japanese pedals.
Ah.
Yeah. And we got a whole bunch of others. Those are ones that are just coming up, and I've got a list of people that I'm going to be reaching out to this weekend to get them scheduled. So it's going to be great. We've got some fantastic stuff coming.
Nice.
Also, excellent new news. Also, speaking of guests.
New news.
Several, let's see, in 2019, I reached out to a certain person who just reached back out to me. He said...
He's been busy.
Well, all the different platforms, it's very difficult for me to keep track of all of them because between my personal thing, my band, the company, there's like 4 different platforms that I got to, 5.
Dude, same here with all the business stuff. And somebody will send me a message and doesn't get a reply right away.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, a Mr. Brett Kingman, the famous Brett Kingman,
Yes.
demo artist extraordinaire on YouTube and all the other platforms said, "Hey, I just got your message."
That's great.
But he, I understand, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm so sorry, but let's do this." So I'm really excited that we're going to get him on because he's an extremely knowledgeable person as far as the gear goes,
Nice.
and does fantastic demos. He's an absolutely effortless player too, so it's great fun to watch. And if you're not familiar with Brett Kingman for some reason,
Check him out.
Check him out on the YouTube. And let's see here. So we got a whole bunch of stuff that we're going to talk about, but first we need to give a quick announcement. We need to thank Rode. So for supplying all our fantastic audio gear. We're very grateful for them, and for our pal Nick Stillman down there. And so keeping us sounding good, feeling right.
It does sound, feel, and look good.
And they're coming up with some really fantastic innovations as of late that are actually reaching beyond people who are like ourselves, who are just like, hey, if you want a podcast, well, what if you don't want a podcast? They've got amazing actual recording gear that you can use, and also some fantastic accessories that are coming out. So
I like that portable unit that you took over to Rob's to record the addendum to the tube thing. That was neat.
So well built.
Yeah,
it's shocking how when you hold one of these, whether it's the mic
not
that we're
literally
using
shocking.
Right now, it is not shocking. It is
it's properly
Good
grounded.
clarification.
It is.
Although at Rob's house, you never know.
Yeah.
Hey.
Well, when you pick up something of quality and you're like, whoa.
Oh, I know.
This is really nice. How much was this? Mm-hmm. And then you're like, wait, really? That's not bad. So anyways, thank you very much for that. I also wanted to share a note that we got. This one, it was on a little bit on the long side. This is from Trevor Newman, and he sent this to me, and it was kind of cool because Tony, I think you're particularly going to enjoy this.
Okay.
So he said, a thought on your recent podcast regarding guitar destruction. Naturally, Pete Townsend is the master of this genre, and my recollection goes back to his appearance at the Marquee Club, Wardour Street in London's West End. The year was 1968. The Marquee was a small club, and to see any band there was a treat. On this particular night, 23rd of April, the club was packed. The Who had recently come back from an American tour, and their fans were eager to welcome them back to British shores. If my memory serves me, the opening act was Jethro Tull.
Oh, wow.
Top of the bill was The Who. The Marquee at that time was a low stage, and the crowd had just 2 rows of seats for the audience and the rest standing. I was standing, but my friend Daryl, who I didn't know at the time, was seated in the second row. We have conferred as to actually what happened, but naturally, we are relying on the memory of 2 men who have seen their best days behind them. Okay, well, I mean, that's a little bit harsh, but...
Yeah, because they were in their 40s back then, right?
Who?
Jeez.
No, The Who?
No. I'm just kidding.
The problem with remembering things from so long ago is that the memory does sometimes play tricks on you. I seem to remember Roger Daltrey swinging his mic over the audience and hitting a girl in the head with it.
I would pay to see that.
He apologized, but Daryl is blank on this event. Daryl will remember. I really actually want to talk to. I think it'd be fun to talk to Daryl.
Yeah, maybe so.
And both of these guys about some things. Daryl remembers that from his close seated position, he got a good look at the 345, the guitar.
Actually, Rose Morse, 1998.
Well, he brings that up.
Okay.
As PT turned round, he could see that the guitar had previously been repaired. He mentioned 2 bolts holding the headstock together. Also, an amount of blood coming from Pete's hand as he broke the 345 neck. I am pretty sure that they had another band on between JT and The Who. My recollection was that it was The Gun, parentheses, Race with the Devil, but Daryl does not remember it. Daryl's not very helpful to this story.
I don't think Daryl was even there.
Well, he was seated.
Yes,
No, he has a concert,
and they can find no
anything.
written evidence of their appearance that night. Anyway, that is my memory of the strangest guitar breaking event for Pete Townsend. I agree with Tony. My favorite breaking event would have been anything with a Rose Morris Rickenbacker.
Yes.
However,
I
didn't start seeing The Who until 1967. Yeah. And by that time, I think the Rickenbackers had been replaced.
Yeah, they were all broken.
At my first
They wouldn't give him any more.
At my first 1967 Who gig, Pete Townsend played a Gibson 612 twin neck. Hard to imagine.
What year was that?
67.
Huh.
Going back to the podcast about immortal axes, there was a lot of mention about Peter Frampton and Pete Townsend. I saw them both on the same bill in the 60s with The Herd, Frampton's band, supporting The Who.
Now, wait a minute. The 612, was that the same one that he's seen on All the Best Cowboys Have Chinese Eyes?
You're asking me that?
Yeah. I mean, you said you know all this stuff.
Yeah, that's exactly what I said.
So if that is indeed, I actually picked up that guitar.
Really?
Yes. It was at the Gibson repair shop years ago. And the guys there said, "You got to see this."
Yeah.
And it's no longer owned by Pete Townsend, but it was that white double neck guitar that he's kind of peeking through on the.
Oh, right.
On the either.
Well, that must be it.
But I don't remember him playing that in that era. Usually in that era, it was he had moved on to SGs.
Well, was it not? I don't know, man.
Well, it could be. Who knows?
Yeah,
Yeah. So, anyways,
sorry.
Thanks. Anyways, so Pete, The Herd, Pete Frampton's band supporting The Who. Great. Now, the coup de grace. I have to say.
He spoke French.
I like I told you so.
Was that Austrian?
Paul Simonen's Rickenbacker 4001 smashing on the cover of London Calling is the best you can get. It ain't ever gonna be topped. Sorry about this as being long-winded. Trevor Newman, the most British name of all. So there you go. There's a recap.
Okay.
From some, a person who has been there, which was kind of cool and seen a lot of that stuff. And the fact that he agreed with me.
Yeah, that's pretty much the reason you read
that
it.
Is the reason.
That's right there.
Yes.
Yeah.
So anyways, thank you so much to Trevor for sending that in and for sharing all that information. Anyways, that's it for that. So there.
Okay.
All right, then.
Love it. You always win, Todd, because you won't even let me touch the buttons on the Rodecaster Pro. Although he did let me push the record button.
That's true. If you
Special
play your
day
cards
here.
right, Tony, I will let you push the record button next week too.
Oh, I can't wait till next week.
Anyway, so let's talk about what's going on this week. Okay, Tony, why don't you kick us off here?
I think I will. So this week, my friend Chris, who builds guitars, he's kind of scaling back his business, doing only special order stuff. He had a couple of items that either were in process, stuff that nobody spec'd, but he put together, and he had a flying V style. Neck and body that was already together and painted.
"Quote unquote" style.
Style, yes. Heavy on the style.
Trademark Gibson.
Very heavy on the style. Very heavy on the quotes.
Right. Please don't sue us.
He had painted it metallic orange or orange sparkle.
It's a sparkle.
Well, yeah, not metallic.
Yeah, it's
Doesn't
definitely
look like foil.
Yeah, no.
Jiminy Christmas, Tony. How long? I mean,
A metallic paint
everything.
has flakes in it.
No.
And then,
Yeah, it's just smaller sparkle. That's actually
Small.
what it is.
It's just like
Anyways,
So anyhow, he's he's trying to move some things, and he gave the neck and body to me at a very good price. I appreciate that. Thanks, Chris. And so I am going to put it together with various parts and things that I have.
you're going to assemble it.
I am going to assemble it. I am not a builder.
thank you.
I am an assembler.
Yes.
But it's pretty cool, and I'm going to end up
Tony is an assembler.
going heavy on the ass.
Wait a minute. You can say that, but I can't say.
I said assembler.
Okay.
Okay.
It's on now.
But this thing it's
really cool.
It's glittery, sparkly.
It looks awesome.
And I'm going to do a black and gold sparkle guard.
I'm excited to hang it on the wall here, Tony.
Are you going to put the Guitar Knobs emblem on the pick guard somewhere? Maybe
no.
on the headstock?
No. I could do that
on the back
actually.
of the headstock.
I could. I'll cut it. I'll carve it in with a what is it? Wood
Pocket
wood,
knife?
No, wood burner.
Oh, okay.
That would be cool.
Right through the finish. There you go.
We'll get a brander.
But anyhow, so I'm looking forward to it. I have another V style that Chris made years ago. And it's kind of like 50 specs, and this is a
Heavy
50
on
spec.
the Carina quote.
Yeah, well, that one is Carina. This one is mahogany.
Yes.
And then I had a set of my favorite Duncan pickups to put in guitars, which is a JB in the bridge and a Jazz in the neck. And I sent those over to Zach at Brandon Wound because I need to put gold covers and, of course, gold screws in those. So he's doing that for me. So
That's going to be awesome. Is the pickguard going to be black or white?
the pickguard is going to be black and gold sparkle.
Oh, like the first one that you made me for my Les Paul special.
Yes.
That I opted not to use. Not because it wasn't cool looking. I just wanted something with
He
some
wanted
more
more.
blazo.
Yes. So that's kind of fun. I'm looking forward to putting that together. I've got a couple other projects in the works as well, but that's what I do.
That pickguard material will look amazing because it's subtle, but it's there.
It's black, but then there's those gold
Yes.
sparkly things in it.
Yeah, like I said, subtle, but there.
Subtle.
Nice.
It's very subtle.
Yeah,
So-
your soldering is subtle.
That's all I got.
my.
That's all I got.
That's a great
That's
guy.
big.
Yep, Rob.
I really do have nothing.
That's nonsense. I know that's nonsense for a fact.
Nothing in my personal music, Rob. I'm too busy working on everybody else's stuff. Have I even
Well, let's
plugged in any of
explain
my
that
gear
for
week?
a bit because every time that you're not on, we're basically saying Rob's really backed up. So help us understand.
How about some bran? You need some bran flakes?
Yeah, that'd be great if that would get some of the stuff out of my house. No, I literally if I might be able to fit a couple more amps within the walls, and then I'll then be storing stuff underneath the tarp out front. It's
Nice.
so much stuff right now, so it's ridiculous.
So tell me about, do you have other cereal other than Cheerios in your house?
Yeah, I don't see.
There's no cereal in that box. We've already established it.
And there is
It's
no
filled with ordinances.
and there is no cereal box.
And I thought it might be a
either.
hidden camera.
No, it was like 5 years ago. Todd came over and saw the biggest box of Cheerios on top of my fridge, and ever since then,
But after that, then it was on the counter, and I was like, why? Why is there's nothing else?
He's been to my house like 4 times.
No, I've been there many times now.
Were they legitimately Cheerios, or were they
of
the
course they were.
generic equivalents?
No. There's no substituting Cheerios.
Plain Cheerios or Honey Nut?
plain.
Neither. No.
Those ones are
Apple
plain.
cinnamon?
Yellow box.
Well,
There's a yellow box.
Apple cinnamon's usually my
My
go-to.
photographic memory is photographic.
Weren't they called Apple Jacks?
Apple Jacks
those
are delicious.
Are great too. Those are great too.
Aren't those the same thing?
No.
No, they're different.
Oh, so what is your favorite Cheerios then?
Apple cinnamon.
Apple cinnamon.
Absolutely.
Nice.
I have an addiction to
But
cinnamon.
these were not. These was the yellow box of Cheerios.
Huh.
I know that because there was a cutout of what appeared to be a Glock. I'm just kidding. I don't know. Anyways,
like you see in those movies, like
Yes.
a prison movie where it's
it's a
the
book.
where it's in
yeah.
a book. It's it's cut out the back.
The file in the cake kind of thing. Yeah, I know.
So so all I've got going on is me working on other people's messed up stuff, like what is that Sound City Concord? Is that what I was working on yesterday?
Well,
Yeah.
I don't think it's messed up, is it?
Well, yeah. I mean, it has some issues, and
it's
that's
got some issues.
That's
I mean,
what
it's
we're
a
correcting.
super old.
Yeah.
It's like a 40
Oddball.
No, it's a 50-year-old amp.
Right. And
That's
it was
crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Should he just take it somewhere else?
boy.
At this point,
No,
don't tell me.
That's what I was gonna say. Let me tell you.
What did I tell Rob? I said, I'm glad that you are working on it.
I appreciate that.
I truly do appreciate
Yeah,
that.
and it's not really that one's just like any of those old ones. You hit little
gonna be
weird,
awesome.
little weird things you're not expecting. Like I had to pull out the fader. So once I got it apart, I got a decent look at the faders, and there was a lot of just hair and just stuff stuck in there.
Yeah.
So I was like, okay,
That's where all mine went.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe that's what made its way into the Timbit I just had. Gee,
That's
should I say that by name?
That's not
I
backed
shouldn't
up.
say it.
No, you beat.
That's what just like the one that I found in the donut hole I just had.
Yeah.
Oh,
So anyways, yeah. So that's all I've been doing is working on people's stuff.
Yeah.
Literally, I haven't, like I said, I haven't plugged in any of my own gear since the last gig. So,
Have you opened up a magazine and looked at anything?
nope.
No.
Okay.
Wow.
That's okay.
Nope.
All right. Well, good for you. You're a busy boy.
Yep.
Yes.
How about you, Todd?
Well, I have been, speaking of Brandon Wound pickups, I was talking with Zach. So I mentioned on a previous episode where last minute I decided to swap out the pickup from the TV Jones to a humbucker type pickup that Zach, who is now working on Brandon Wound, had developed. Loosely based on something. Why are you guys doing that to me?
What?
What are you doing? Yes, no, you're doing something. Stop it.
Echo.
Yeah.
Echo.
Anyhow, so this week I was in talks with Zach Oswald. who
Talks.
is-
That sounds very serious.
Well, it's been-
Negotiations
yes, we've been
here.
negotiations. We've been negotiating.
Peace
and,
talks.
and talking. And a couple, well, I guess about 2 weeks ago, whatever. And I mentioned this on the last show.
I do remember.
Replaced the TV Jones pickup, which is a great pickup. The Powertron, awesome pickup. But
Powertron Plus?
No, was it?
Did we get
no,
the Plus?
No, this
or
was just the Powertron.
Okay.
Anyway, so replace the pickup, yabba. And so that was a temporary one because I borrowed it from Chase, who needs that one back. Zach is building
This is
me a
very
new one.
complicated.
It is.
Yeah, I passed out like 10 seconds ago.
Anyways, he's creating a new one based on that spec that he made because that was like a one-off, and I really liked it.
Yeah.
And so he said, "Hey, let's talk about covers." And I was like, "Ooh," because I like things. I like the way the things look, and I put a lot of stock into like making sure that I try to, present them a certain way. So he said, "Hey, how about this one? How about this one? How about this one?" He showed me 3 different kinds. One was sort of like it would be the type that you would put material under.
Open-
So it was like
open frame.
frame,
Yeah.
right? So
Like back in the days of the screen top pickups.
yes, exactly. So that's for those who don't know what an open frame is. That would
There
be.
you go, thank you.
You want to explain an open frame, Tony?
Yeah, it's just imagine, if you will, the sides and everything are covered, and then there's a rectangle cut out.
Right. Chrome
where the-
sides.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
open top.
Yeah.
Well, looks cool. Looks
I
really,
wouldn't-
looks
I
really
wouldn't
cool.
do that.
I didn't.
Hold on. Say open top though. Does the bobbins are still there, right?
Bobbins are exposed.
Okay.
yes.
Bobbins are exposed, like almost completely.
Gotcha.
But there is a little bit of hangover, like lip
Yep.
hangover around that.
Yep, I know
Where
what
it's
you're talking
framed,
about. Okay.
essentially.
Framed.
Thank you, Tony. Okay, and the next one is basically like a Filtertron style.
But it's a humbucker size
But it's a
pickup.
humbucker size pickup.
Okay.
So he has a cover that will do that.
Okay,
And I was
so it's
like,
kind of got the 2 ovals with a thing across the middle.
correct. Which I really like the look of those. Those are awesome looking.
Yeah, they're okay.
So
He's waiting for the third option. So far, he's not
Yeah.
impressed.
Well, give me the third option.
So the third option is a full size cover.
Yeah.
But with the vertical 6 radiator style cuts in it. But I'm using 6 screws in it. So they're not open. So we're gonna give that one a shot and see what that looks like. Tony's wrinkling his nose.
And shaking his head. And
Yeah.
notice he's quiet.
He is quiet.
So,
But hey,
And
that's,
what's the fourth option?
that's those are the options. Well,
Okay, what's the next one?
what I wanted, what I would really like originally is the full cover,
Yeah.
just with 12 screws.
Yeah.
But
Why didn't you just go with that?
because it's not an option right now. So
All right. Well,
why not?
So the radiator cover, they can look good. I mean, I've used those on some guitars.
it's black
a different
bobbins
look.
underneath. So it's not as complex as when they put other stuff underneath that. I don't like it when
Yeah.
they put other material underneath the radiators.
Yeah.
So
All right. Well, good luck with that.
thank you. And if I don't like it, then guess what?
You can always
it's
change
my
the cover.
prerogative to change them out.
here's a question.
Yeah.
Does it have to have a cover? Are we overthinking this here?
Mine does. I want it to have a cover because it's a single
right.
pickup, and
So,
I want some bling back there, man.
Bling.
okay.
That's what I'm doing.
Plus, he likes to cut the high end off of it.
That's what I was going to say. Are you concerned about
Oh,
the
it's
change
not
in
gonna come
tone?
out. No,
Covers do cut high.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I understand that, but the screws are outside of it.
Still.
So,
Can I explain this to you?
please,
mansplain
please
it to
feel
him.
free.
So, and this is
And I did, by the way, I did talk to both Jared and Zach about that, and they said, "You're not. This is going to be fine. You're not."
Well, they obviously don't know what the hell they're talking about.
Yeah.
Don't go saying that.
No, I
They're
mean,
not here to defend themselves.
Traditionally, a cover now with the pole pieces exposed, it helps, but you're still creating a shield around it, around the coils of the pickup.
Yep.
And so, I think just by default, you end up. I mean, most people wouldn't even notice the difference. Where I notice a difference is like on a Telly neck pickup, which is completely covered.
Yeah.
If you remove the cover from a Telly neck pickup, it brightens up considerably.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's more noticeable on single coils for sure.
Yeah. But no, I think you'll be fine, and you'll probably put the Powertron back in.
Ooh.
No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah.
No,
But that's the fun of this. We can do whatever we want.
Well, yeah, and that's and yeah, I think the pickup that Zach is winding for you is a fun little option.
Here's a side note. You ever find out what the magnets were and all that?
No, not yet, because I think he's still kind of honing it in. But
I'm
I
just
will.
curious what you land on if they're A2 or A5.
Probably A5s.
I was thinking two, but
no, but they're twos.
Oh, they're twos?
Yeah, because they're built off of.
Oh, you know what you're talking
yeah.
about. Yes.
cool.
So, anyways, that's kind of
I
a
usually
shot of
prefer
it.
the twos as well.
I just showed Tony a picture, and he's
Well, I'll say this: it's very interesting.
yeah.
I don't think it looks bad. It looks.
It's not quite as bad as a hair in a donut hole, but
Oh,
No.
man. Stop doing that.
In my it's unique, which is not a bad thing. It's like
Right.
It's got its own look to it.
And that's the whole thing. It's like if I'm up there, I don't have.
Well-
I've only got one of these lives to live. So if I'm up there, I'm going to be like, whoa, hey, look at that. That's
no,
cool.
it's definitely unique. I don't think it looks bad at all. It's very unique. It's busy, not necessarily in a bad way.
Right, but that's purposeful because
There you
the
go,
rest of the guitar is relatively simple.
It's going to stand out. It's going to
Yeah.
be like you see the guitar, but you really see the pickup for
yeah,
sure.
because
giddy
I
up.
only have one, that's kind of what I was going
Okay.
for.
Yeah, giddy up.
And that's why I originally picked the Powertron, because it had the six screws in it. So
Yeah, Tony's still not having it, but
Yeah,
I understand where you're coming
Not
from.
sold. Not
anyways,
sold.
that's okay. That's okay.
All right,
All right. Well, that was exciting.
That's the show.
everybody.
Thank you for coming.
Hey, all right. So let's get on with this. Loosely called. What else can we call this? So that in my actual title,
let's call it reminiscings.
reminiscings. That's terrible. Junk box.
Junk
There
box.
we go. I like that
Here's the
one.
junk box.
But spell it Junque.
Junkie box.
Junque.
Junque box.
Junk box.
Okay. No. Okay. Oh boy. Oh boy. Here we go. We've got a bunch of topics that we've been rattling about. Topic number one.
Is that topic TOPIQUE?
Topique.
Oh my
Topique.
Oh my lord!
The peak
Okay,
one.
Stop.
Just read.
Stop. Yeah, I'm trying, Rob. I'm with you on this. All right.
Where's his mute button?
Voltage?
Voltage.
Oh, we're talking about different tube stuff.
Yeah. So this
Yeah.
is. I ran across a video. Actually, a couple, because I'm just. I'm interested in that stuff, and I always like learning things. And this was referencing how to control the voltage at a like at a gig or whatever into your amp.
Yeah.
And I thought, why is that important? Because I didn't really. I've heard a few different things about, like, you actually brought up a really good point where I said,
did?
yeah. You said get a really good fat cable, a power cord,
Good
go
quality.
into one
Oh yeah.
outlet and do your pedal board and your amp through that.
Oh,
So make
yeah.
sure it has like
So you get
like a
like-
4-way extender on the end of it.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I usually tell people. Because sometimes you need extension cords. I always tell people get one of those 25-foot extensions that has 3 outlets on the other end.
That's what I got.
That's a good idea.
So that way, again, you might plug into an outlet right behind your amp, and it has the ground lifted. So you then got to run
shares
across
a common ground.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Always shares common ground. You don't have ground loops here.
Right, and the trick is usually you in the front of a stage if you're gigging, they've got a bunch of strips up there, and you just plug your stuff into those strips. But that's also where a lot of other things are drawing from. And so anyways, I thought that's pretty smart. So I've been doing that. I've got a big giant cable. It weighs weighs a lot in my gig bag.
But when you need it, it's nice. Yeah.
But this brought me to learning about this other point about, well, even if you're running both of those things or just your amp or whatever into the wall, and anybody who's gigged before, sometimes it's sketchy back there, and you're like, what are these electronics back here are a little
and the outlets,
questionable.
Yeah, most bars if you're not professional and you're not on a big distribution supply, you're plugging into an outlet on a stage that's 20 by 20. That same outlet is powering a cooler, a neon 40 feet away, and half the lighting or whatever.
Right.
So I think what you were referencing was more just the voltage, like where the voltage is at, but you also got noise issues.
Well, that's a good point. Now, from what I learned, this is maybe a little bit more relevant to vintage amps that had varying voltage requirements, but still, because some of those things that you just mentioned, like if you got one outlet powering half the stage and half the bar, you really don't know where that's at. And what the conclusion from this video was that it can really affect your sound. So I just thought it'd be worth talking about that, and specifically, what are some things that can help that?
And I think directly what one of the videos you're talking about was just talking about not necessarily dirty, but just the actual potential. Is it at 112 volts, 120, 127 volts, and how that can change? And what you can do
is
to
your
regulate
amp being
that.
overloaded or underloaded?
Right.
Underloaded.
Tony, start us off.
Let me take you back to the days of Eddie Van Halen.
There you go.
He was probably one of the first, if not the first, guitarist to use what's called a variac, which is a voltage alternating device, resisting device.
Yeah.
So you can run
transformer.
Yeah, it's a transformer, a variable transformer. And what Edward used to do is basically starve his amps, which gave that, when you turn the power off on a tube amplifier, that sound just before it goes off quiet, that kind of grindy sound, that is from starving the tubes. And basically, I don't know what his said. He probably
you do that
had to be
too,
under
Tony.
Yes, indeed.
We're on a road trip.
Yes, indeed. But I'm not sure what voltage he used to use.
I was going to ask you, I've heard all kinds of things. I think most recently I heard on Dave Friedman podcast that it was like something like 90 volts.
Okay.
So something ridiculously low.
An amp that's rated at 120.
Right.
When you starve it at 90, it gets that kind of crunchy, grindy, starved, browned out sound that he was famous for, and a lot of other players have used it since.
Wasn't that a result, though, of the amps being like so overpowered that you can't really turn it to get that sound? You'd have to completely blast.
Well, yes and no. So the folklore goes that he was cranking the amps all the way, and it wasn't necessarily to get that sound without having to crank them. He was cranking them. They were complaining about the volume. So then to
That's
pull
what
the
I'm
volume
saying.
down. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
Right.
Yeah. Just backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
We're now trying to do that to recreate that crank sound. He was like, I want crank sound. What can I do now to pull it down?
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So there are a number of devices, including variacs, are still available.
Yep.
They're not terribly expensive. They're a little cumbersome because they really are more of a laboratory
Yeah, they're meant to
equipment.
be benched up. Yeah.
But there's a couple of others out on the market that a variac is good at regulating the output voltage, but not necessarily the input. And I think, Rob, you brought up that today, whether you're at home or in the studio, the studios are probably a little better, but in a bar or whatever, the voltage coming out of the
wall.
The wall can vary greatly.
Most new build homes developments are running. If you would put a multimeter on your outlet, it would not be surprising to see 126, 128 volts.
And that's a little too harsh for.
I'm going to share. So this is what I learned. Okay, Rob, you already know this, but this is something that I didn't know. The transformer basically 3 times powers. I'm messing up the words, but you know where I'm going. Save me.
So what Todd's describing here is that whatever change you have in AC voltage, and this is a general kind of mathematics, inside your amp, when the power transformer in your amp, it changes. It's a step-up transformer that increases that AC voltage from 120 volts to a higher potential that's then switched to DC. Generally, most tube amps, it's a multiple of 3. It amplifies. So the whole point is that if you're like, well, it's only 8 volts difference, it's then multiple by 3.
Now it's 24.
Now it's 24. Then you multiply it again, because once you switch to DC, it's 1.4 times. Oh. So it's like a 30 volt difference that you're talking, which is then like, okay, that's very noticeable.
Really bad for your.
Well, not necessarily. It's not necessarily bad.
Not necessarily bad.
It's just different. So here's a great story for you. This is good catch there,
Mr. Recovery.
I had a customer, local guy, good friend of mine. He is an anal nutbag, and he called me and said, "Man, one show I play a month, my rig just sounds absolutely terrible." And I talked to him, and again, he notices every little detail. And I said, "Well, you're not changing anything. No, nope. It's this venue and this venue and this venue, whatever, where it always sounds bad." I said, "Well, get yourself a voltage regulator, not a one of those filtering units or anything, not a Variac, a voltage regulator that's only job is whatever comes in, it puts out 120 volts steady." Long story short, he got that first weekend. He played this other venue. He was like, "Yep, that was the problem." He was like, that bar was running at 113 or whatever, and I hated the way my rig sounded, or it was at 126, whatever.
Well, I think you made a really good point. One of your latest Instagram postings, where you're saying
the old deluxes.
Yeah, well, even newer amps are having problems with. These are basically brand new amps.
Brand new. One was brand new. That new store
power tubes are just blown out.
Yeah. So this is something, and there's a certain. I'm getting a lot of, I don't want to say angry comments, but comments that I'm a nutball on this, that from vintage guys go, no, the old vintage Fender Deluxes and Princetons, that's the way they were designed, yada, yada, yada. Well, not really. They might have been designed around 120 volt source, because I think by the late 60s, that was the accepted standard. But the real world outlets were not running at 120 in the mid 60s. They were still 112 or something like that. The point of all this is that the Deluxes back then, a 65 Deluxe, would put about 400 volts on the plates of the output tubes. Roughly 405, 390, something around there. Now that same amp, when it comes in my shop, if I bias it at 120, we're now up to 420 or so.
Okay.
Someone else doing it at their home where they're not regulating the voltage into the amp, they're running a source of 126, so they're running it at 440 volts, let's say. Yeah.
That's enough to chew up the grids.
Any production 6v6 now, except for the JJ, are only rated at 350 volts on the screen. 4 or 450 on the plate. But the screen is the real problem. They're only rated at 350. JJ tubes are rated at 450. But this is the problem, is it's actually the voltage applied to the screen is too much, and it's causing the tubes to fail. So that's actually why I tell a lot of my guys to get a Variac, or, I'll throw out the name
Some
here.
sort of regulator.
Brown box.
Okay.
Well, and so Brown box, the one that we're talking about, the Amp RX?
Amp RX.
Brown box. That is literally almost a pedal form.
It's about the size of a brick.
Yeah. Maybe a little, yeah. So it's
about the size of a brick. Yeah.
It's not something that you necessarily put on your board, but it's not a giant amp top type rack thing or something like that.
The biggest difference between that and a normal Variac. A normal Variac is typically cylindrical, and it's bigger. Like we were talking the size of a volleyball or something slightly smaller, whatever. It's just not meant to be portable.
Right.
Where the Brown box is kind of a very elegant, in my opinion, simple solution that musicians can understand.
Readout, so you can look down and go, that's exactly what it is.
Exactly, very clear
and
digital readout.
You can adjust accordingly
Exactly.
to normalize that.
Exactly. No matter what comes in, you can set. There's one knob that you set to match. So if you have, let's say, 125 volts coming in, with one knob, if it's set to the bypass position, whatever they call it, it shows you it's 125 volts. You then adjust that knob until it says 120. So
right.
now, and then you can go.
It diminishes by percent less,
and
right?
then past that, once you set the source voltage, then you can select how much you're diminishing it by 3%, 5%, whatever different settings are. Yeah.
Yeah. So I could do it.
Yeah, exactly. It's very simple and it's clear, like you said, very clear, easy voltage readout. So it's like, oh, me, musician.
Right. Those are coming in at like about $350.
Yeah. It's not cheap.
They're not cheap, but if you happen to be at a gig and you're like, this is the one, everybody's here. This is like, I mean, personally, I feel like every show that we do, I approach it that way, even if there's like, doesn't matter how many people are out there, right?
Yeah.
So is that worth ensuring that you've got peace of mind that you're doing your best?
Teach their own,
Yeah.
For me, I would see that on certain amps, more vintage amps. I think it can be a huge impact on your sound. Something newer, not necessarily like the reissue deluxes, but like my Bogner I don't use one. That amp was pretty much designed to run at 120. So if I go up to 125 or go down to 115,
right.
But an amp that you feel really sounds its best at 112 or 114, then a brown box might be a really good idea for those venues that are running 127 volts.
Right.
Yeah.
So
it's just what you want to put into it.
Interesting. Is that something that people who are buying modern amps, like you just got a new amp from Sweetwater? Is that something that
I don't see a whole lot of that? And again, it depends on your designation of modern amps. Meaning, like if it's for instance, your Marshall Origin.
Yeah.
I am, without seeing the schematic, yada yada, I'm assuming that it was actually designed to operate at 120.
Yeah.
So I think that would be less impact, unless you find that you just prefer the sound with 120 volts.
I see.
But it's already at that medium point. Whereas but
I could choose to starve it.
Absolutely. It's a little different sound, and that might be your thing.
I'm not gonna complicate things. I don't like complicating things, you guys.
The times I recommend them a lot are the new Princeton and Deluxe reverb reissues. I can name 2 or 3 local full-time players that I've pushed into the brown box because they were bringing their Deluxe every 3 months, 4 months because they were blowing tubes.
Jeez.
And it was like, hey, we got to do something about this. We got to pull your voltage down. This is a solution that you don't have to mod your amp. You can just plug your amp in. And then since then, all those guys, the 3 that on top of my head, I haven't seen them for a year. So it did
planned obsolescence.
That's your business model is
flawed.
So interesting.
So
look, I never want to see you guys again. Get out of here.
Well, no, I mean, so after I see the same guy for
you're trying to do the right thing
every
for
month,
these guys.
it's like, man,
there's a bigger problem.
You're chewing through output tubes. It's nothing I can do about this. Yeah.
So we're talking about tube amps. Does the voltage affect solid state amps as much?
Great question, Tony.
Not nearly as much.
Oh.
Yeah. More so because most solid state amps, tube amp, I'm going to try to make this very simple. Tube amp voltage comes in, goes through a transformer, increases the AC voltage, switches it to DC, and then that voltage, right after it's been rectified, switch to DC, goes right to all the components, right?
And sometimes it gets inverted.
Okay.
He's just trying to sound smart. Ignore him.
Okay, I'm just... Okay. Solid state amps almost always have regulation in there.
Okay.
Regulators, Zener diodes actually set at a set voltage because these components are meant to run exactly at 15 volts.
Okay.
Exactly at 75 plus or minus.
Okay.
So
they've got like built-in regulators.
That's exactly it. They have built-in regulation. Yeah.
I was really trying not to do. So, remember Kids in the Hall? Or
watch too much TV, guys.
It was. I think it was. He was on a squash thing, and he came in. He was the Eradicator. Eradicator. So I was just thinking, there's a little tiny guy in your amp. That was the regulator.
There's several little guys in your amp.
Yeah.
Oh my. Well,
Yeah.
now,
Squirrel.
where do we go from here?
Nice.
Anyways.
So that covers voltage,
Yeah,
right?
Yeah. So I
That-
guess so.
that's pretty fun.
Yeah, gives you a little bit. So yeah, but now with the brown box thing with your stuff, it would definitely keep you. You could set it so it's always 120, or maybe more with your Supro. I would imagine that you would hear more of an impact, and you might not like. You might go down to 112 or 114 and go, no, that's too bad. I don't really like it. But
Yeah.
it would probably be more noticeable on a
It'd be
circuit like that.
interesting. Yeah, more than anything, rather than because I'm not chasing like this unattainable tone thing like a blues master
just want
or something like that.
consistent.
Just making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do.
Yeah.
You know,
that makes
like the outlet that I was plugged in. I would have known.
Now you know.
Holy crap!
There you
If I
go.
would have had a brown box or whatever before then,
It would have told
sheesh.
you exactly how much voltage is coming out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So was I starving it, or was I overloading it?
Probably starving it.
I don't know.
Question. That's the question of the day.
Probably a faulty.
Electricians are going, yes, like, yeah. Okay. Next big one.
Yep.
We had a lot of comments and a whole lot of news regarding all the tube stuff. Since let's just carry that
Oh,
over
yeah.
really
Okay.
quick.
Yeah.
So,
Okay.
Rob, and don't worry, guys. We're talking about
Yeah.
other things besides tubes
And
today.
Tony missed that episode. That was too bad.
Yeah.
I listened to it though.
Yeah. Well, thank you for listening.
Yes.
Yes. You did a fine job.
Thank
Yes.
you.
So,
Especially the addendum.
What-
Tony, what's the update sound?
Huh?
The update sound. Tube updates.
It's not in perfect rhythm. Otherwise, you're just saying the same letter over and over
Yeah.
again.
It's like an SOS. Or he's like, I think he was actually Morse coding more donuts, please.
Less hair.
Where's my
Yeah.
damn coffee?
Hold the hair.
All right. So what were we talking
Throwing
about?
up in my mouth every time I see it.
Donuts.
I think of that.
Bathtubs.
Tube
Bathtubs.
update.
Tube updates. I don't know. What's the newest?
What do you
thing?
mean you don't know? You just had a whole list of things that we were talking. You knucklehead.
Oh, not no.
Hang on.
It's not okay. It's not tube updates. It's talking about people are how they're workarounds of new tubes. Like they're starting to use used tubes that they pulled from amps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's just an update
And
on.
and the noise stuff.
Okay. Noise
Yeah.
and
Using used tubes.
used tubes.
Techs using used tubes.
Okay. I'm actually, and I'll prompt that.
Okay, yeah.
There we go.
There you go.
Okay, so it's not necessarily a tube update on the situation of people can't get the tubes or whatever, but we're seeing a lot of people starting to talk about different things about tubes. And actually, the thing that we just referenced is also potentially a way to protect the tubes that you have.
Yeah, and that's something I guess you tried to get me to talk about.
Well, I want you to get up into outer space and start
No,
repairing
you
these
don't have to
things
do that.
So-
in the vacuums of
so,
space.
So here's the problem. Remember, I was going to go up with the cosmonauts.
Well, okay.
Well, I've spoken to my contact,
Yeah.
Ivan, and he tells me that they didn't even want the guys from the space station back. So the hopes of me going
Right.
up are not
That's true.
really.
That's true.
So you got to put that on the back burner.
We got to put that on the back burner for now. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So, anyways, a couple of the things that
Can't
we've
get out of
seen
the way.
is like, yeah, I'll take that out. A couple of things that we've seen, I'm hearing and seeing also on like Craigslist, like, hey, here's a box of old tubes.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
everybody's
bad
just
news.
going like, I got this random box of stuff, and then, a lot of tubes are going for sales, and you're just
Yeah.
like, I don't know what they are, but I probably need them, right?
Yeah.
So what can you tell us about,
Well, and-
quote unquote old random tubes?
Well, and to your point, I'm seeing there are some YouTube techs, and that's big parentheses, YouTube techs, guys that, posting on YouTube. I work on guitar amps and blah, blah, blah. And anyways, I'm seeing quite a few of them posting that they're using what they call pulls, which are tubes they pulled from other amps in the
right.
past.
Like what we were kind of joking about, like buying up all the like old
Right.
PV Kings and stuff like that.
Right. So I see some techs saying, well, I went to order some 6L6s and I couldn't get any, so I used some pulls and put them in my tester and matched them and blah, 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 blah. So we're already seeing some, again, techs, in parentheses, putting used tubes, known pulls into other amps.
Is that bad?
you're then going into Goodyear, and rather than selling you new tires, they're selling you tires they pulled off a car last month.
Right.
That were pulled off a car for a reason.
Okay. Oh, they were pulled off a car for a reason.
That's what pulls are.
It's just not
when these
just
guys
a car that happens to have a couple of extra tires that you're like, oh.
Well, why would you ever pull perfectly good tires off a car?
Well, if the car doesn't run.
Good case.
Fair play.
But that's not typical for if your repair tech says he's going to use pulls, it's somebody else would either have had to come in and abandon an amp, and he pulled the tubes from it just to use.
We can't fix this amp, but just go ahead and keep it.
And that's almost never. It's they're used tubes. That's what they are.
Okay, all right.
We're not there yet, people. We're just not there yet.
All right.
You know.
So if you're being recommended that that's the best road to go, maybe get a second opinion.
Yeah. There are still techs out there that do have new stock still left. There are some techs that literally, as the pieces come in, they order tubes one at a time, and those people have been caught with their pants down because you know they don't keep stock. But yeah, so we're not there yet. And back to the tube update, I have been notified some of my back orders from a month ago are going to be shipping soon. So this is good news that the whole thing may be resolving very quickly.
But that is also a back order, and it doesn't mean that anything new is being made or being shipped.
Right. Well, and especially JJ, they haven't shut down. They're going to be. But yeah, so the overall thing is don't go putting used tubes or tubes that you had pulled out of your amp 10 years ago.
Using those tubes.
I won't go using those tubes.
Okay, that one's pretty good.
Okay.
Yeah. So anyways, yeah. So
Thanks, Tony. You got me.
But yeah, there's a lot of guys that are putting that up already that they're, like you said, matching old used tubes they had sitting around, and we may get there.
Right. But
I hope not.
But you're speaking directly about techs, and I'm talking about there's just random people who like, I've got a bunch of old guitar gear and here's my stuff.
Who knows what you're going to be buying?
Yeah, I mean, unless you're buying them for like next to nothing and you have a tube tester.
But even then, like a tube tester, it doesn't put it under load. Most of them don't even run at full voltage.
Yeah.
So really, a tube tester is only good to tell you, like, okay, this thing is flat out
vacuum
shorted.
Is good.
Yeah, I mean, really, is it shorted internally?
Yeah.
It doesn't. It only tells you so much.
Right.
But yeah, so I mean, but you may, if you buy a lot of 50 old tubes, and there's a lot of RCA 6V6, 606, you may be able to match and put together some good quads. I don't know. I wouldn't go spending $20 a tube on anything like that,
No.
Okay. Yeah. That's good to know. Now, we're also seeing, I think there's just a lot of focus on this aspect of the sound world right now. Other ways, like ways to protect your tubes or ensure that you're doing everything you can to preserve the sanctity of them so that you don't have to go get new ones for any undue reason. And we actually talked about some of those things on that show that you were on. One that comes up is I remember asking about, transportation and stuff like that. Mm-hmm. When it comes to, you've got a tube head, which a lot of people will actually put in like a flight case or something like that, or a road case. To help protect it. Mm-hmm. But if you got a combo, your combo goes where
where it fits.
The amp part goes where the rest of everything goes, and that's also tied to a lot of weight, which can get bounced around and jostled and stuff. So one of the things I remember asking was, how much does your your amp transportation affect the longevity and or the quality of your tubes and how they are situated?
Yeah. Well, first of all, if you're going to have an issue from a tube from a jostle or movement, it's usually going to be breakage. That's usually what it is. Yeah. It's not like, it gets jostled around a lot, so then it becomes microphonic. In theory, but really it's usually breakage. But like we talked about, you treat it like a big heavy box full of glass, take precautions. Don't put it in a trailer without a road case, kind of common sense stuff. And to this point, like since Tony wasn't here, how do you usually transport tube amps, Tony?
Usually in the back seat, not in the trunk.
There you go. And we talked about that, remember?
Yeah. I mean, and the other, one habit I got into years ago especially with tubes that are easily accessible, like a Fender or whatever, is before I would plug it in or turn it on, I'd always push on the tubes to make sure they're all seated.
How about that?
It's just one of those.
If you can reach them.
Yeah, I mean, like on a Fender, they're always
right
open,
there.
but like Voxes and some of the other ones are closed.
Have you ever found one that's dropping out?
Not really.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
Sometimes on EL84s, because of those little springy things that hold them
Yeah.
in, I've had issues with.
They come a little sideways, kind of.
Yeah. But other than that, no. I mean, but it's just something I always did.
Yeah, it doesn't hurt, you
No.
know. And to that point, the reason I asked you that question is like, you know, how many gigs you probably done where you've checked them, where I don't check them like that. But case in point, you know, as long as you take care of it,
Yeah.
you know, treat it like prized possession, putting it in your back seat and stuff, they generally won't come loose.
Yeah.
So.
What about the noise factor?
Noise factor, yeah, and I think this is something you mentioned that you saw a video in particular. They were addressing this, like things you can do to try to keep microphonic output tubes in particular from being a
Wrap
problem.
them in aluminum foil.
Absolutely, that works wonderful. You know what? Also, you just wrap them with cotton. I hear cotton directly against the tube is a good idea.
And soak it in kerosene first.
Whoosh. But yeah, and it's actually interesting.
Please do not try that at home.
Disclaimer. I actually just returned some tubes back in February to my distributor for JJ. And I out of the, let's say, 1,000 tubes I get from them a year, I return far less than 1%. Mm-hmm. And they never give me any hassle. And I'd say most of those are usually microphonic problems. Mm-hmm. And I only send back
Can you
ones.
explain microphonic really quick?
Microphonic, yeah. The tube itself has a rattle to it where the components are loose and are rattling slightly, which is kind of normal, but microphonic is when the tube itself then amplifies that rattling.
Right.
And you hear them as whistles or metallic rattles.
So maybe something similar as I think of that is if you tap on if you have your guitar plugged in and you take like a little screwdriver and you tap the pickup, if it goes tick 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 or if it goes like
Okay.
Or ting, ting, ting.
Yeah. I mean, typically
it's loud. You can hear it when it does it, as opposed to one that's not active or
Yeah, and every tube will do it. Like I get people call me and they've been watching YouTube stuff and they say, well, when I tap my V1, my first preamp tube, I can hear noise. And I'm like, well, yeah, you're tapping. It's good. You're going to get some noise.
Yeah.
It's when you're playing and you hear these weird sounds.
Right.
That's when it's a problem. Yeah. Or again, usually it's a lot of rattles or like a really, really high pitched feedback.
Rattle feedback.
So you mentioned V1. In my opinion, if you're going to spend money on a good tube,
Yeah.
That's the first position, right?
First position valve V1, because that takes the signal from your guitar or other instrument and does the initial amplification.
Yeah, and I think a video that Todd is referencing a lot here too actually better explains it. The reason that V1 is so, quote, sensitive is actually that everything after it is amplifying its output.
Gotcha.
So if that one's a little noisy, it's being amplified by 4 other tubes after that, which then makes it huge.
Yeah.
Where
Can you just move that one to a different position?
And that's exactly, yeah. You can do that at a gig. And a lot of times you can do that. You move from V1 to the phase inverter, which is the last little tube before the output tubes.
It's the pinky.
It's
toe.
Yeah. Okay. So anyways, you could swap those. And that first one that was a little microphonic in the first position, once you put it in the phase inverter, it's not nearly as sensitive.
Right.
So you can swap those around. So that way you don't have to buy a new tube. You can just change positions of the tubes and take care of it. So, but the bigger problem, I think, like what you were talking about, Todd, was the output tube microphonics. You can't switch those. They are what they are. And there's people talking about it. So there are these tube dampers, which are just silicone rings, high temp silicone rings. You probably see them; they're bright orange, and you can put those around the tube. This sometimes helps. It's become standard practice of me to put those on 6V6s and deluxe reverbs because the JJ 6V6s, unfortunately, are prone to microphonic noise.
By the way, if anybody right now is just seeing an image of the Julia Roberts meme where she's overlaid with the math problems.
Oh, jeez.
Then
We haven't talked about anything math.
Boy.
Just
Anyways.
talking about putting silicone rings on tubes. What's the
Yeah.
nothing high tech about that?
Please go ahead.
So anyway, so again, like the video, one of the videos you're referencing,
Yeah.
they're talking about putting dampers on rings.
There's a whole bunch of different ones, whether it's different seatings for tubes and stuff like that.
Yeah, and
Do you see a big? I mean, is there a real big difference between I guess some amps have like springs that go right over the top, and I don't mean the aftermarket ones. I mean like regular. That's how they came from the factory, or the little aluminum, like they almost look like a bear trap kind of thing.
The clips. I would say as far as holding the tube in, either, because as we just talked about, there's very little actually pulling the tube. As far as helping with microphonics, definitely the ones that the retaining caps or whatever you would call them that have the springs on either side that literally go on top of the tube.
It looks like just aluminum, literally a solid aluminum cover, like
with a
tube
spring
that
in the bottom.
So you can't see the actual tube itself.
Oh no, you're talking about preamp tubes then. Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
I'm just talking about.
Well, that's different. The aluminum shields that go over the entire tube, those are only made for preamps.
Gotcha.
So you can't. I was talking about output tubes. Those are either the bear trap claw or two springs on one spring on either side with a cap on it.
Yep.
So if we're talking the claw versus the cap for output tubes,
Yes.
the cap would actually touch the tube, in theory, dampening it somewhat, and you can then put a silicone ring underneath that in between the tube and the cap to physically push down and kind of mute the tube as well, which, some people say it doesn't help at all. It can't hurt for sure.
Okay.
If I have a particularly horribly noisy amp that has the spring caps, I'll put a ring around the tube and one between the cap and the tube.
Does it matter the kind of amp that you have? So like some amps, your tubes are sitting upright. Sometimes they're hanging. Does that matter?
No. Because the problem with the microphonic rattle is just the tube itself. What happens, especially in combo amps, you play a note, the speaker is 2 inches away from the tube. The tube then rattles at all frequencies, but at certain frequencies, certain notes, it causes two parts in the tube to resonate, and then it amplifies itself. So yeah, whether it's upside down, sideways, whatever, that's not it. That situation of events is going to happen regardless. So all you can do is try to grab the tube with like dampening rings to keep it from rattling at all.
Right. Interesting. That has a lot of other implications. Like if you have a head and you sit it next to your cabinet, not on top of your cabinet, will it actually sound better and preserve the...
It will have less noise in the studio. Like if you notice most studio pics of your favorite band or whatever, the heads are in a different room.
Yeah.
And a lot of times they're sitting on foam, and they'll have them stacked on top of each other with foam between it.
Yeah.
That's all why. They're trying to take all those noises out of the equation.
Interesting.
And absolutely, I now own 2 combo amps. Let's see if I keep them, but I almost always buy heads and cabinets for that reason. Combo amps, you're just going to have more microphonic problems, period.
Interesting.
And it's because those tubes are right next to the speaker.
Wow, look at that, everybody. I didn't know that. That's great.
And I was talking about, someone interrupted me 20 minutes ago, but
Probably Tony.
I was returning some JJ tubes. And I said, I returned less than 1%, yada, yada. My last return, over half of them were rejected for a return. And I was like, excuse me, what? You've never done this before. I return almost nothing. And they said, because I returned it for microphonics. And they said something to the effect of, except for this one brand, we're not accepting returns for microphonics. So I think this might be a new trend where I would say that tube is rejected because the microphonics are just inexcusable.
They're saying, no, it's your amp is stupid.
No, they're just saying, well, welcome to the world of tubes right now.
Yeah, they're
Oh,
saying, be
gotcha.
glad you got tubes.
Exactly. I think that, so yeah. And likewise, I've got customers that are bringing things, it's a little rattly. And I'm just like,
JJ, where's JJ located again?
Slovakia.
Oh.
But yeah, I'm telling customers, if you got something that's just a little rattly, just deal with it for now. I mean, and I'm trying my best not to replace any tubes that are just a little noisy under certain circumstances. It's like, unless it's just like, oh my God, it's terrible. Well, it is what it is.
That's so interesting. I'm still thinking about because I've always been a combo guy. Like I like the idea of a combo, but
It's convenient, but
it is. But yeah, that makes me think quite a bit.
So,
and if you're dooming, boy, don't get a combo.
don't get a combo. Yeah.
But if you're dooming, you probably have a head the size of an RV.
Right.
Anyway,
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Here's another one. We were talking about. I'm gonna switch it up and save this for later.
Okay.
Patent versus trademark. Needle off the record.
Yeah.
Hard left, but there have been between people we know and people that we know personally and people that we're hearing and seeing things about out in the world. There seems to be a lot of
controversy.
And
Discussion.
I would just say that there are a lot of builders that we focus on, particularly on the show, that we've had on the show. And we do try to pull in people that are trying to create something, some form with their own fingerprint on it. Okay? And I don't mean like somebody that's just assembling, replicas of what we know exactly that there's almost zero difference.
Right, we're talking about somebody that is like you said is maybe
I've thought of something that I haven't seen before, or I'm putting my own real big twist on something.
This is a unique body shape.
There's a unique body
something.
shape. There's a unique pedal aspect, format, configuration, amp, any of that stuff, right?
Right.
And it doesn't mean that the people who are making things that very, 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 very closely, almost indistinctively closely, are doing something bad. That's not what we're focusing on. We're trying to celebrate people who are like, hey, I made something, and this wasn't there before. We do love that. Those people that are doing that are investing in an immense amount of time, an immense amount of their resources, immense amount of, the
blood, sweat, and
tears. Exactly. And it's important that that's paid off by us acknowledging that, which is why the show even exists. Yeah. But also that we
more importantly probably
maybe protect that, and help recognize like, hey, this is a thing over here, and how do we protect that? So we were discussing the difference between, how can somebody do that? If there's a builder, if there's a guitar maker out there who's like, I created my own shape. I've never seen this before, and this is my creation. Now, as much as everybody goes and is like poo-pooing and getting mad about some of the huge builders, they're doing the same thing,
right? I mean,
so it's a very. I've had a lot of conversations over the last couple months about this, and there are people who see this as a very black and white thing. This is maybe, unfortunately, a very gray thing.
Yeah, at least
I think it should be
shades.
at least less gray, maybe not black and white.
And I lean more towards black and white.
Well, there's reasons for where I'm saying and this is the conversation.
And I think it's our each individual viewpoint where we sit in this industry as far as consumer and producer and everything in between,
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So to that point, one of the things that we've been talking about is how can smaller builders maybe protect themselves and their ideas. One of the biggest arguments for this is Tony's going to drop on us.
So they're essentially, if it is a true design, whether it's a shape or
a circuit or
anything
a circuit
like that,
layout or a format, or
there are essentially two options. The first is a design patent. Design patents cost a lot of money.
They do.
and they require
I'm
very.
going to interrupt.
Yeah.
What's a lot of money?
I mean, I would say
what's a minimum
several
filing?
thousand.
$3,000 to $5,000.
Okay, and that's like for an attorney to put it together.
Attorney has to put
it.
it. There's a specialized attorney that does it. There are very specific drawings
That
that
they need.
have to be presented, and there are companies that do patent drawings.
Right.
And then there's the descriptions and everything like that, the filing fees, and then it has to go through a
And
review.
it takes a long time.
And it
How long?
takes about a year and a half, 2 years.
Yeah.
Okay.
Typically.
Okay.
Unless it's they find something that is comparable that already has a patent.
already exists. Right. And that's part of the process. And whoever you hire to handle this too, do they first do a cursory search to see if there's anything already out there?
They would hire a company that does nothing. That's their special. Just like there's a company that does the drawings and a company that does the verbiage and things
So
like
they kind
that.
of check it all out, make sure it doesn't already
Right.
exist or anything too close, and
Right.
then they file it. Then
So
you
all
wait for
those
the
really
government to do
cool
it.
like blueprints of like the Telecaster,
Right, that's what that is.
the Broadcaster. That's when. Well, it would be the Telecaster because they, anyways.
Right.
they had
Well,
changed that.
it was the electric guitar.
Yeah.
Electric solid body instrument. That's
right.
That would,
But the point being,
so I
is,
sidetracked you. Go.
yes,
Okay.
that is what that is.
Okay.
And go ahead, Tony.
So, a lot of companies, especially in the early '70s, Fender, Gibson, Martin, several others, there's kind of a shortcut, and that is the use of a trademark. And trademarks generally are less expensive to file. They are faster, generally speaking, and somewhat easier to defend. If you have a design patent and somebody basically duplicates what you're doing, you also have to have a bunch of money so that you can legally defend that thing. And if you're going up against somebody who has big, deep pockets,
Right.
you're going to lose.
But to that point, though, and this has been the overwhelming argument against. Forget about trying to do a copy,
Design patent.
a patent, just like a proper patent. But while like your number one competition or predator may not be the biggest guitar company on the planet, it
Right.
could be
something
another
small.
builder that you're like, hey, builder, that looks an awful lot like the thing that I'm building right now. So
Now-
that stands to be a protection.
Now, before we go over there, now trademark. So you can trademark. So design patent, as I understand it, is all encompassing. Meaning, like it's how the bridge mounts to this. It's how this is attached to this. A trademark would be more like we're trademarking the V shape, or we're trademarking our headstock shape.
Well, there's two things. So you can file a design patent
Right.
on a unique shape,
Right.
whether it be the body or a headstock.
But you can't trademark the entire guitar how you attach your bridge. That has to be a mechanical patent.
Right. I mean, I think for a trademark, it has to be because it is used in conjunction with your brand name.
Right. Right.
Things so you can file a trademark, and this is what in the 70s what a lot of companies did, because Japanese companies were basically
Right.
duplicating Fenders and Gibsons and
So
Rickenbackers.
what's a good example of a trademark versus the design patent, Tony?
Well,
Aren't both the Fender headstock shapes? Haven't those been defended by trademarks? Not
correct.
Yeah,
It's
patent.
all the
Not
So-
design patent.
so
because it's
those
not
are
a
just the
perfect-
shapes.
Yeah,
it's not a.
So if you go back into archives, so Fender has hundreds of patents. Some of them are for pickups. Some of them are for the one that comes immediately to mind is the Jazzmaster Tremolo, and it shows that body with that. It's kind of a unique tremolo system. It's not a Bigsby and it's not a Maestro.
It's not just aesthetic either. It is
Right, right.
functional.
It's about the
different.
functionality.
Yeah, and it's three-dimensional,
It's a
not
mechanism.
just.
So that, the Jazzmaster Jaguar Tremolo is a patented design.
Yes.
Gibson PAF pickups, patent applied for, and then became Gibson patent pickups. They applied for the patent for a humbucking design pickup. And there's some controversy in that too, because how it was awarded. But, that is a patent. Now, when it came to trademarks, because Fender had already sold and Gibson had already sold instruments, they really couldn't file a true patent.
Right.
A patent has to be filed before you first sell something.
That's correct.
And just filed, not awarded, right? Not completed.
Yeah, it has to be filed.
Which is why we see the patent applied for on everything.
Correct. Okay. So what they opted for to prevent Japanese companies from basically duplicating Fender headstocks, Gibson open book headstocks, the Rickenbacker shape, including, I don't know if Rickenbacker did this on purpose or if they just lucked into it because their trademark drawings showed, in addition to the shape of the headstock, the kind of triangle-shaped truss rod cover.
Yeah.
And that is what it is. It is protected by a trademark. Which good for them.
Absolutely.
That's a double protection.
Yeah.
But so that in the early 70s, that's what all these major companies filed to prevent Japanese companies from basically duplicating and whatever, even if they used didn't put that exact logo on it. It was the shape.
And let me interrupt you here. So kind of to where we're talking about now, where obviously the problem isn't knockoffs from Japan, it's knockoffs from countries like China,
Indonesia.
The trademarks worked because Japan was an international trading partner that had agreements for trademark, where we don't have those agreements with China.
Correct.
They can,
thus the Chibson.
Exactly. I mean, they could stamp out exact Gibson headstocks like
Rickenbacker.
And for instance, not that I recommend anybody do this, but it's much easier to get things like, for instance, in Canada, that are, say, replicas.
Really?
Because they do not have those trade agreements with China. So
interesting.
So they, it gets into a lot of shades of gray when you're getting into this stuff. I don't necessarily recommend anybody go out and, certainly I would not condone passing off a obvious replica or copy that may even say Gibson or whatever on the headstock. I don't recommend doing that.
That brings me up to something I'll bring up later.
Okay, you can do that. But I think, these trademarks in particular are probably the best way. And if it's a small builder that has a specific design of a body or a headstock or whatever, it's not as expensive as going for a patent. And if you've already sold instruments, you'd have to go with the trademark route anyhow.
And I think most small builders, what they might be setting themselves apart, they're probably not reinventing the pickup. They're probably not reinventing a bridge. It probably is shape and visual, cosmetic stuff, which would fall under trademark anyways.
Correct.
You wouldn't need a patent.
And that's where we start to see the black and white starts to become a little bit grayer.
Yeah.
Because to what degree is it different, right? But I
guess if the trademark's awarded, then it's different enough.
It is. I think just a general sort of, craft understanding would be, if you're having to justify it, maybe it's too close. But then again, you got to think of it this way: how many small builders? Like, I'll see somebody come out with a what they think is a unique pedal idea, and I'll go, no, so and so over here already did it, because there's so many people. So the pedal industry is a little bit different.
Well, it is. But so you've got a small builder, let's say in Columbus, Ohio, that does, let's say 6 guitars a month, and you've got a small builder in Iceland that does 6 guitars a month. They may not know, and they may have come up with almost the same kind of adjusted shape. Who's going to sue who, and who's? I mean, they just happen to develop at the same time,
I think that, okay, so where I see a lot of gripe happening, and whether this is Jared talking about DiMarzio or, he's said that one openly, so we'll just go with that. And
even though he's not here, we're going to throw him under the bus.
Well, no, he,
Good job, Jared.
Thanks, Jared.
The problem is that when you have people who are aggressively and with great force,
enthusiasm,
maybe going after people that can no way defend in any way, shape, or form, or are protecting something that is so wide and vague that it prohibits anybody from even creating their own version of anything close to that.
Yeah.
Is where people get their feathers ruffled.
Understood.
It is tricky, and this is where the gray part, because but they came up with that, right? So is that bad, or is it just bad because they're big and they've got a lot of money and they're not letting me play in the same sandbox?
As far as the big companies, my take on is I'll say this name because I think they've done this a little better. Fender isn't demonized nearly as much as some other brands are,
right?
But they have very successfully protected their stuff, probably more so than other companies have. But I think they've been a little more selective on who they go after and how they go after people.
Right. And at a certain point, you can't put the genie back in the bottle.
You can't, but if you think about
Dang it, I almost saved it.
if you think about Fender stuff, they kind of have, and how they've gotten around it too is that they do the licensing of the necks through All Parts and somebody else now.
Yeah, but that doesn't prevent all the other builders.
It doesn't, but they very quietly. I personally know a few builders that have gotten letters from Fender.
Okay.
Because the headstock was too close.
Yeah.
And just
by too close we mean identical.
Yeah, exactly. And a gentle letter to a small builder that's only doing 5 guitars a month or 10 or whatever is enough.
Right.
And they don't have to make a whole thing, and they're not going after other big companies who also make S-shaped guitars. It's like, well, that horse is out of the barn.
Yeah.
We're not going to. But if you're going to
that
copy
genie
our
is out of the bottle.
Yeah,
box,
whatever. Yeah. so I think some companies have, like I said, have been more the big guys because they haven't just drilled everybody. They're not. Fender's not going after Schecter because they make an S-shaped guitar. They're like, well, yeah, okay, but don't copy our headstock.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah, because that milk's out of the cow.
That's a little bit. Yeah, exactly. Well, and wasn't there a lawsuit years ago that Fender did try to do something with the bodies and it was quickly struck down?
Well, I mean, yes, and in some cases, I mean, it was Fender and Gibson. I don't know if you remember, just a few years ago, Gibson was licensing the Flying V shape. I
didn't know that.
Yeah, and I don't know how that all ended up. I think a point here is if it's a person that's building something for themselves, most of these major companies they're not going to come after it.
No, it's resale.
But when they see, stuff showing up on eBay or if you have it on a website,
right?
And they
or
perceive you're selling
is using it.
Yeah. If you're selling hundreds of guitars.
Well, or remember, I mean, in the early 2000s, I can remember so many small builders all over the country were putting the Fender decal right on the headstock.
Yeah.
So I mean, musicians
kind
of brought this
that's
upon
where
themselves.
the gray and the black and white.
Yeah,
it's right, exactly.
So I think it's to a certain degree, you have people who are sort of, I don't know if it's crying wolf is the same thing, but they're complaining about Gibson going after people or any other major manufacturer, but then also copying other small builders or heavily being influenced by other small builders.
Yeah.
Well,
I think we see this more in the guitar world.
Yeah.
Maybe not so much amps, and definitely not pedals.
And you mentioned amps and pedals. The problem with the amps and pedals is that it's not as distinct. It's almost impossible to trademark a circuit. It just is, because there's only so many ways you can put resistors and caps where you can draw something on a piece of paper and call it a guitar, and it'll be the shape of your hand. It's like, well, nobody's ever trademarked that shape before, so you're good.
Well, I think too that there is just an understanding of like the pedal world of builders seems to be like, oh wow, you figured out a slightly different way to do this thing, and you did something different, and people actually celebrate that, including the builders themselves.
They celebrate it, but then you've got knockoffs from China. They're being sold on eBay for $29.95 of every new pedal that comes out,
and
even boutique stuff,
and even old stuff,
and
old stuff. However, to the argument, even with the guitars, is that if like Gibson shouldn't be threatened, because if people really want the Gibson, in theory, they're going to buy that. They're not going to buy the one that isn't one, but looks like it. I'm not saying that is correct or incorrect or valid or invalid.
No, I was going to say, and my long-standing viewpoint on that, I own 2 Gibsons. I don't own any. I've never owned any knockoff cars, actually. I only buy the thing, right? As far as Gibson, they always seem to be in the spotlight that it's a lawsuit here, it's a lawsuit there. I really wish they would focus more on, rather than putting out the competition by lawsuit, build it at a better price, at a cheaper price. So then they don't need to have any there won't be any competition. There will be the Chinese knockoffs that are $200 which they can't sue them out of existence.
You could also
anyways,
argue by doing that their quality, and the reason you would buy that one is you're spending the extra to have, this is the best, or this is the most quality, or this is the whatever.
And they should continue that. But that's what I'm saying is, like, for instance, let's say there's a builder in Arkansas right now that is making exact duplicates. They call it the 59 Les Paul Standard or whatever, or Paul Standard is what he's selling them for $3,000 or whatever. Not, roughly price would you buy Les Paul. The only reason he's in existence is because he's able to give someone some level of quality or some
customization or
unique. No, I'm saying he's making knockoffs. Nothing. He's not making them in dinosaur purple. He's making a 59. And this is happening. There's these guys that are still doing this, and they're still putting their own logo headstock on it. But what are they offering that Gibson isn't?
Right.
Because they got the name too. So what's that? Or here's a case in point: Collings guitars. A lot of them are. They're not knockoffs. They've got their own, but you look at it, it's like, okay, that's their version of a Les Paul. That's their version of a Junior or whatever. Well, how are they able to sell those guitars for more than a Gibson?
That's the thing that I don't understand. I truly don't understand.
Have you ever picked up a Collings?
I don't mean just Collings. I mean, there are a lot of other builders and everything. And that's where I'm saying it's really, really murky. So when people are like, raising up and throwing their fist around about, this isn't fair and stuff. Okay, what is the context of the argument?
Yeah.
How is it isn't, and this is what I mean by it's not black and white. There are a lot of factors that go into whatever that argument is, and just like any hot topic, it gets polarized completely to it's either this or it's either that.
The far extremes rather than,
and it's just simply not that. But where this originally started was honoring the craft and the creativity of people who are creating unique things. Just do that. And don't like it. So if you're going to take the time to do something, make it your own.
So to that point, I think where you come from is more the small builder. So you don't have, so you've got somebody that's created this unique body shape, somebody else in the industry, big or small, shouldn't try to steal that or borrow directly from them. I see this happening more in the pedal world, though. I do see a company will come out with a not a drastically unique pedal, but their own take on whatever. And these cosmetics, I can't think of any right off the top of my head, but literally it's like this is their look at their pedal. And then I see a Chinese knockoff show up on Amazon 6 months later that's like, they changed one letter in the name,
identical. But I think the pedal world, we understand like that's going to happen, and it's not a thing.
But to your point, I think it's on us as musicians to go, I'm not going to support that. I'm going to support the real thing, even though it's 4 times as expensive, because that's the guy who designed that.
But my point is that I believe that the audience, especially that listens to this show, does honor that, and they do believe that.
I've got I know. I've got so many customers though that would be like, well, I just bought the was it Nux? Is that one of those brands on Amazon?
You're thinking like Joyo or something?
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, but it was only $40 and it's close enough to this.
But
well, cool. But by
fine.
you doing that guy that designed it, he doesn't make money by selling the units. He makes money. The selling of the units pays him back for his 800 hours designing the product.
Yeah.
You know?
I get that. But I do believe that the pedal world is a little bit more about that exploration because there are so many variables. There are endless possibilities and variables.
And I'm not talking about somebody's new take on the clone. I'm talking about if someone it comes out with whatever. I'm trying
That
to
is
think.
totally unique.
Okay, the Archer. It's a clone. It is, well, yeah, I just call it, clone, right?
Yeah.
Now, if someone, and maybe this already exists, where Joyo or whatever, one of these companies has already made the armor, and it has the same styling and everything, it's like, but they just they said, oh, we can take this Archer and change a couple things, and now we sell them for a quarter of the price.
To wrap that whole thing up, the whole point I was making about the endless possibilities is just simply that is the part that's celebrated, and because those are usually at a smaller price point, the more the merrier. That has been what is your hand raised now?
I have to interrupt again. You say almost like, well, smaller price point's not as big of a deal. Then you got somebody like Keeley who sold 1 million of his compressors.
Yeah.
That's a big deal.
Why is that a big deal? I mean, I know that's a big deal.
Dollar-wise versus like if someone rips off a body shape, it's like, well, that's huge. But
that's my point. That's my point.
Oh, okay. So you're agreeing with me.
In a roundabout way.
Yeah. I hadn't finished there.
Okay,
so
sorry.
My point was that in the pedal world, there are so many variables and there are countless ways, and that is celebrated in that realm more so than in the guitar building world, because there's only so many things you're going to be able to do that are truly distinctive, that it takes a lot longer, and it's a much bigger investment, and there's a lot more for someone to ramp up to actually be able to create these things. So there's a lot more at stake when it comes to, this is the body shape that I came up with. And then you start, and then all of a sudden you see it in 2 other places, and you're like, right. Guys, come on! How are we doing this to each other?
Equally as devastating, for sure. I mean, and that's why we're going back to electronics. That's why some pedal guys and amp guys goop their stuff.
Yeah,
and people flip out about it. But that's why, because they just spent 200 hours tweaking this thing, and then somebody just knocks it off.
But the difference is that people are going to still buy those, and they're not somebody who's buying a $1,000 pedal.
Oh, well, is
not going to buy the $30 version.
But I'm not talking about that. I'm talking about the guy who's the Keeley, who when he first came out with his compressor, thank God at that time there weren't these knockoffs.
Right.
Otherwise, would there be a Keeley now? Because he would have been like, I'm not making any. I'm not able to sell them because there's my knockoff on Amazon
but
for $30.
He's building all kinds of other ones as well.
Not back then. No. That's what I mean. Wait, when he came out with his compressor, but that's what I'm saying is at that time. Whereas now you've got a small builder that might come out with a pedal, and then if it's knocked off almost right away, it's like, well,
right. But to my point, it is drops in an ocean, not drops in a glass, and I think that is a difference.
Mom and Dad are fighting again.
It might be, and this is a mentality that is. You can't change like a group's mentality based on that. It's just that is the way that things are playing out. But it's an interesting topic, and I'm sure it's going to continue to evolve.
So let me just go on. Let me just say that if you want to play your conscience and you want to do the right thing, then you should support, whether it's a smaller builder, the person that came out with it.
Yeah,
it's inevitable that there are going to be knockoffs, and probably cheaper and more readily available, whatever. There's going to be a certain group of buyers that are just going to buy strictly by price, and they don't really care. Yeah. But I think, and I think the listeners of this show in particular do support the people that come up with certain things and ideas, and whether it's a pedal, an amp, a guitar, whatever. So, I think, I guess the best thing to do is to do what you think is the right thing. And
right, and if you are a builder, try to do some of those right things that can actually protect you.
Now, and you and me have kind of been going back and forth about where you draw the lines and all this. Question for Tony, because Tony has openly said you buy the knockoffs from China, whatever, and so why do you buy those products? Like, why is that enticing to you?
I have a sickness.
Yeah, but
in all seriousness, is it that you have a sickness? You want to explore these new things, and that's the affordable option?
That's part of it. Yeah, affordability is definitely one of the things. Availability is another one of the things. There are some, Chinese knockoffs that are models that are not available.
Simply not available at all.
Just simply not available.
That's usually what you kind of tend to go for.
Yeah.
And for the record, you have an awful lot of actual owner builder.
Right. And then I just asked the question because I know me, I've never bought anything like that.
Yeah.
Todd, I don't know if you have, and he's just sitting here and I said, I know Tony buys these, so
Yeah.
what's
Yeah.
why
so
do you?
that's I think that's really about it. And I try to be, I certainly wouldn't resell anything like
Absolutely.
this.
Right.
First of all, you can't.
Right.
I mean, you pop it on eBay or something like that, and it gets knocked off.
That goes to a very interesting thing that happened at the Nashville Guitar Show. Segue.
Oh yeah.
We were perusing, and so I had 2 points to talk about the Nashville Guitar Show. One, it was great to be at a guitar show.
Yeah.
And saw a lot of fantastic people.
And it's great to be in Nashville, too.
And it's great to be in Nashville. I was hanging out with my little buddy Jared, and we had a great time. There were 3 things that I had noticed in that show. First of all, was the strange. It's like if you're going to a guitar show, it's either a show in which you are saying, these are my things, and I'm just sharing it with the world, or it is now a retail event.
Mm-hmm.
The mentality that I believe goes along with these shows is that you have the opportunity to get your products in front of a whole bunch of people and just move it or whatever. I can't, there was one batch of, there's like this huge pedal of tables.
Pedal of tables?
Pedal of tables.
I would like to see that.
There's specifically, there was a these tables of pedals, and they were at or above retail for used pedals. And I'm like, guys, what is this? And some of them were astronomically high. And it was so off-putting. I looked at a couple and I was like, this is stupid. Why are you And now, as a buyer, that's me saying that. As a seller, they might say, that's how much it costs, dude. Okay, I can kind of get there. But the spirit of these shows, we don't come to the show to not buy stuff. Mm-hmm. We come to the show to buy stuff. If you make it prohibitive, or if I can go get this anywhere else, if I feel like I'm not being given a deal and I feel like I'm being taken advantage of because I happen to be there, I am not inclined to buy from you.
Absolutely. Now, as a guy that's, and Tony, you've been going to guitar shows for, almost 30 years, whatever.
Yeah.
Way back when there was no internet, that's how these vintage guys would sell their stuff. So it wasn't market value. Then I think we noticed when the internet came in, that's where you get the deals. And around that same time, I would see a lot of dealers pulling out their garage specials.
Yeah.
They would just have junk, just absolute junk filling their entire booth,
Yeah, good junk. One man's junk's another man's treasure.
No. I mean like junk. Remember those crate amps that were like crates?
Well, okay, yeah.
And I would pass by a dealer's booth, and it would be over half. It would be that stuff, and it's like, what do you drug all this out to a guitar show? You got a real 59 Les Paul across the aisle. And
there's somebody who's turning around in the back of their chair right now, looking at their collection of actual crate amps.
Wallow crate.
Yeah.
well, but I mean, when you go to up until that point, when you went to a guitar show. Again, 30 years ago, you would go in and I remember when I bought my first Marshall, I walked in, I had like $600 in my pocket. I wanted a 50-watt Marshall head. There were half a dozen for that price.
Yeah.
That's just where you bought them back then. You couldn't get them on the internet.
Right.
And then, like I said, so it had that that's what the guitar shows were at that point.
Yeah.
Then it changed to more
like
of
a swap meet.
Well, yeah, but a high, quality.
Higher end swap meet.
And then it switched to kind of a mix between a, junk bin swap meet with really overpriced vintage stuff. Point now is that I'm seeing more and more new stuff, or like you're saying, just dealers bringing out just their stock of what they also have on Reverb, also have on eBay and everything.
Right. My point there was just that it seemed it just kind of killed the spirit of the show for me.
Well, but I think the other part that you're missing maybe is that sometimes prices are set higher, knowing that there will be some haggling going on.
That's a good point too.
You're going to settle for if I bring a guitar in that's $1,100, I know that I'll probably get $900 out of it.
That's fair, but
So
if
you
you
think
bring
they-
it in for $1,500, thinking you're going to get $9, that's messed up.
Yeah.
That's all I'm saying. I'm like some of this stuff. I'm like, what? You're not even making it like dealable.
No, and I agree. And you probably dealt with dealers at these shows before too, where they'll have something listed at, let's say, something that is selling on the market for $900 and they have it marked for $13. And you go, man, can you take any less? And they go, yeah, I'll take $12.5.
Yes.
And they're just on Pluto. It's like, there's no way you're going to get that for it. And then at the end of the show, they're standing there and you go back, well, you take $9 now? Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but that's just personality. That's right.
I'm just saying as a blanket statement.
I know you were very off put by the I don't know.
Well, again, it's just acknowledge
but in their world,
if people are coming there to do that and you already are just like, this is what I'm expecting out of it. That was just me.
I don't disagree with you, and I do the same thing. And I walk away from those deals. I don't get like personally hurt. I just go, well, that guy's in outer space, but whatever. That's his.
Yeah,
that's how he wants to sell.
I'm not getting personally hurt. I was thinking about it from the perspective of like the show and what we talked about,
Right.
and the enthusiasm we have for this stuff, and
Right.
the idea of like rushing in and going, ooh, where's a good deal? None of it's a good deal because they're all trying to ask for like crazy, insane prices.
I mean, I wasn't there. I'm curious.
I didn't buy you know what I bought?
So that was the standard. Most of the stuff you went. These are all.
That's why I'm
Wow.
adamant right now. Like
Yeah.
I couldn't believe it. Even like crap pedals. I'm like, guys,
That's
for
disappointing.
real? Yeah, it was ridiculous.
Why do you think so many people were so absorbent
Because
on the
they
prices?
think they can't. Because they think that they can get it. And they might. But what I found was as I kept doing laps, I kept seeing the same stuff on every single table.
Yeah.
None of it was moving.
Yeah.
And I bought Candio from the Cars. I bought an album for my daughter, and I bought another album, Psychedelic Furs, 1984.
Yeah.
That's what I walked out with. Out of driving to Nashville to go to a guitar show,
You couldn't find any.
with an entire center filled with guitar stuff.
Well, and to your point, if I was driving to Nashville now, like just how it is, if I want XY pedal, whatever, I can find on Reverb, whatever.
Exactly.
And
That's my
I
point.
get it. I
So
get it.
I won't
Yeah.
be going to that anymore. I
Unique.
grew up going to, like, every Saturday was going to the garage sales with my dad and my grandpa, and it was the thrill of like, ooh, you pull up and you're like, trying to see what's going on. And this is in California, but I actually do garage sales on the weekends, which is people do garage sales during the week in Ohio. I don't understand. Anyways,
Bored housewives.
it's weird. It's weird. Anyway, so the whole thing is we'd chase these things down, and you're like, you jump out and you're like, oh, what am I gonna find? Right? And I have that same excitement when I go to a guitar show. And if I do find something that I'm really like, ooh, I haven't seen this, or ooh, that's interesting, and then
Yeah.
it becomes like, well, it's not worth it.
No.
There's no point at all for me to go.
and you know what?
And then if I'm looking at guitars, I'm like, oh, hey, awesome, that's a $45,000 guitar.
Right. I'm not going to be able to buy that.
But like two people here can do that.
Well, and 2 points, that's why I don't even go to the local show here anymore. Because for the last decade, it's like there's nothing there that I can't just get immediately through the internet or whatever at the same price.
Unless you're doing a good, like,
You
hey,
haven't been
I'll
to my booth.
trade this stuff. Yeah, Tony's got all kinds of junk.
Well, and I don't know. I know Tony's probably hip to this, but when I used to do the guitar shows when I was managing the retail location, the local store, all the good stuff disappears before the doors open.
Yep. Many times, yes.
Yeah.
But a lot of
At
times
the-
that
at
gets
the real
repurposed
prices.
too.
Well, sometimes, yeah. Well, and that's what, I would trade with other dealers. They come over and they see a early Squire sitting on my booth for $400, and at that time that was the going price. And they're like, hey, are we willing to move? I said, yeah, actually, I am able to move this thing. What you got? Oh, I'll take that. I'll be able to sell that. And you're right. And then he sells it from his booth. I sell it from mine. And
Right.
yeah.
So on that note, I went by this one particular dealer, and it was like, oh, these are cool guitars. These are cool guitars. And then I started leaving. I was like, wait. And I caught out of the corner of my eye a Union Jack Epiphone. And I was like, what? Because those are not out in the wild. The Noel Gallagher signature model Supernova Union Jack Epiphone.
They just not. We don't know.
Because by and large, I mean, if you look online right now, they're all in that same price point. So, this particular one, I was looking at it and I was like, $700, and I was like, holy crap, you know. And I was ready to, almost broke my hand reaching for my wallet. But then I started looking at it. I was like, nope, this. They got this on DHgate for sure. And I started seeing all the little stuff. And the thing that bothered me is I said, hey, is this an authentic episode? I don't know. Bull crap, you don't know. Bull crap, you don't know. You're out here in Nashville trying to sell guitars. Man, don't do that.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Don't you know?
You like to give people the benefit of the doubt.
Somebody else who may not be as wary could end up losing a whole bunch. That's not cool. Don't do that.
Yep.
I mean, for the right price, like the one, Tony, that you guys gave me. I love that. I absolutely love it. It is. I cherish it. You know all the things that are wrong with that.
Oh yeah.
But I'm okay with that.
And to your point, if you'd walked up on that and it was marked, let's say $400, and you asked the guy, says, no, this is a knockoff from this is what it is.
I probably would have bought it.
I get you. Yeah.
Anyways, so that was that was the thing.
Yeah.
Anyways, all right, everybody. Well, that was super duper fun. We're gonna check in with Tony, because Jared's not here, so we're just gonna.
Did Jared borrow the El Camino?
He did.
Again?
He took it for the weekend to
move stuff.
Yes.
Because I didn't see it outside here.
You know what we have to do to make sure he doesn't keep doing that? We need to get some of those old Subaru Brat seats and put them in the back.
Jump seats.
Yeah.
Yeah, let's do it.
Is that ever legal?
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, dear God.
Anyways,
I don't think
ahead.
it ever was. So, ladies and gentlemen, at this point of the show, it's our favorite thing to do. It's our game show. It's called Would You Rather?
Yeah.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen.
That's accurate.
That's accurate. So this one is pretty straightforward.
Yes.
Plain and simple. We have two options.
Yes.
You're walking down the street,
Uh-huh.
and a genie grants you a special wish. Would you rather be able to only nail your perfect tone live or your perfect tone in the studio? And that comes from Scott Philp.
Yes. Thank you, Scott, for sending that in.
Thank you, Scott. So very simple. You got two choices. The genie says you can have perfect tone in the live setting or in the studio setting.
Okay.
Which would you choose?
All right.
Tony, you go first.
Yes.
Okay, I'll go first. Thank you.
Okay, Tony.
I think that I would choose to have perfect tone in the studio. Why? Because once it's recorded, it's there forever.
Yes.
Now, I think even in a live setting, you can get pretty close to that. And let's face it, live doesn't always sound like the recorded, nor should it sound like the recorded version. That's part of the joy of having live music and seeing people that you admire in person. So I would say that's my last final answer. I am going to have perfect tone in the studio.
Okay.
My turn?
Yes.
Live. And the reason live, it didn't really, I'm not thinking theoretical. I never do studio stuff anymore. I never do any studio work. It's just playing live for my own enjoyment once or twice a month. So,
Well, maybe if you had perfect tone in the studio,
would call
you'd get
me.
more jobs.
well, it's not that people don't call; it's that it doesn't pay enough for me to do. I see that as work now, where I see playing live as my hobby.
Yeah.
So,
Well,
so
cool.
that's why I say live. It's just not,
All right.
you know.
Yeah.
But
Okay.
yeah, if I was still doing both, absolutely, I'd be with you on the studio because that's cast forever.
Yeah. We'll accept your answer.
Yeah, thank you.
Todd?
I'm going with live.
Live.
Because that's something that I like. If I'm confident I sound good, I'm going to play like I want to. I'm going to know that I can kind of let it fly and not have to constantly be worrying about it and going, is everybody thinking? Because, granted, the studio, the people in the audience probably
They won't
aren't
know.
going to know, but I know. And that's going to affect my actual performance. And when I get into the studio, I know that the engineer is going to help make any adjustments along the way beyond what I can do.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm going with.
How about you, Jared?
Well, I can't. Yeah, you do his voice so much better.
I think Jared would say,
He'd say live.
Yeah.
he would absolutely.
All right. Well, Jared, buddy, we miss you. Hopefully you're back on the next one. And, oh, yeah, guys, I'll be on the next one. That's for sure. Oh, yeah. All right. So we are going to thank a few people here.
That's right, Todd, because at this point of the show, we like to thank a very special group of people. These are our executive producers. Now, you might be wondering, what is an executive producer? And more importantly, how can I become an executive producer? Very simple. Go over to patreon.com/the Guitar Knobs and check out the couple of levels in which you can participate. Become a member, become a supporter of the Guitar Knobs. And you get a couple of, there's just some great stuff, that thank you gifts and things that Todd is so nice about sending out. But there's one thing more. Rob, what is it?
Get your name read on the thing.
Your name read on the thing, and that's what I'm going to do right now. So special thanks to these executive producers. Moon Guitars, Veteran Pedals, Drew Lopez, John Helverson, Rick Calhoun, Trevor Gunberg, Elad Mizrahi, Jason Roush, Mikey D, Richard Kendall, Mark Garton, Matt Hart, James White, Justin Jones, Anthony Gemalero, Bill Gola Guitars, John Esterly, Anthony Lathrop, Stefan Lamb, Michael Senchuk, Ken Sayers, Doug Christ, Darren Gregory, John Anglin, Tom Brazen, John Sluhan, Rusty Sneeden, Ralph Gottschalk from Wonderful Audio Technology. What? David Poe, Don Kloss, Gregory Randall, and Brett Hogarth. Thank you very much. But don't interrupt me, Todd. Gotcha. There's another level of executive producer. We call them our grand poobahs. These fine patrons wear a fez upon their hat. Their hat? They wear a fez upon their hat? No, they wear it upon their head.
I suppose you could put it on your head.
I
too.
guess you could. It depends on the hat.
Whatever, yeah.
But anyhow, it's required by law. When they listen to the podcast, they just have to have it on. Wear that fez. I'm watching you right now. I've got cameras.
That's not creepy at all.
Hey, you, Manasco. Get that thing back on. Okay, good. So special thanks to these grand poobahs. Tommy Manasco, Ricardo Igareda, David Kaminga, Brandon Wyown Pickups, Hex Matos, Michio Murakishi, Bob Crouch, Jake Cadian, Sam Jett, Tyler Rhines, LSJ Music Company, John Williams, James Pennington, Adam Johnson, Steve Keys, Cody Foster, Science of Sound, Brian Robinson, Jonathan Jerusik, Corey Nigro, Michael Van Zant, Tim Nowak, Jonathan Daly, Martin Cliff, Sean S. And Eddie Serratos. Thank you.
You betcha. Thank you all so very much. And we need to find out, Tony, where can people
Let's
get
do
your
it at the
stuff?
same time. What? No, kidding.
We'll do it Roni.
Yeah. Tony Roney? What? Go.
The San Francisco treat. Just go over to patreon.com.
Well, yeah, we've already established that.
Let's go over there. But then after you go there, go to pickguardian.com. Check out the stuff that I have available for sale online. But I do a lot more custom work than anything else. So shoot me an email. Let me know what you need, what you want, what you're trying to do. And I will take very, very good care of you.
Right on. Rob?
Mad Cow Amplification, Instagram, Reverb, Facebook, OnlyFans.
No.
Chafe.
Your OnlyFans is basically you just rant about stuff. That's all you do.
That could be something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But you do it in some weird outfit or something. Oh, boy.
Yeah, that would be
TikTok.
something.
He could
He
do a
does not
TikTok.
actually have a thing, so don't go there. I mean,
that
to our
TikTok
knowledge,
thing.
he does not.
You could do it.
TikTok thing. I don't even know what TikTok. I'm
Yes,
so
you do.
old.
All right.
I
Hey,
don't
everybody.
know.
You can send me an email, todd@theguitarknobs.com. You can also DM me on Instagram @guitarknobs. We'd love to hear anything you'd like to share with us. And send in your would you rathers. We know that you got them. So do that. And we're so thankful and grateful for the audience out there who's listening, including you, person who is going, wait, me? That's me. Yes, that's you. We hope that you have a fantastic guitar week. And subscribe!
Oh, yes, you do.
What the hell was that?
Those things.
What? God,
He hates everything.
Weird.
I don't hate everything.
You're like
Todd's
Mikey.
the one that hates
I don't
everything.
hate everything. You clearly
Give
hate
it to
everything.
Mikey. He won't like it. He hates everything.
Okay.
More Timbits.
Big fat
You don't need any more sugar. I'm taking these away from you.
medley. Go ahead.
I got the press record.
Oh my god. Okay. All right, let's do something.
Let's make.
Did you get a hair? I think this is a yes. He got a hair in his Timbit.
Oh well. Awful. I can't eat it now.
Now some they're making the Timbits.
Yeah. I felt a little bit like Tina, like, ha!
Well, he was like, "Is this seriously?"
I actually had to cut.
It was somewhat satisfying, I'm not gonna lie.
I know that feeling.
So let's do something.
Let's do it.
All right, Jared, slow down.
Well, let me inspect it for
Hang on.
hair.
Yeah, you're really gonna do that now.
Well, hold on here.
What are the chances there'd be more than one hair in there?
God, I know, but it would be.
I can't believe that there was that I had to do three
These
full pulls to get this hair out of this donut hole.
Yeah.
All right,
I'm thinking
go
about
back.
eating this last Timbit, by the
Here you
way.
go.
Do it.
Bob's Burgers.
Oh, Bob.
Oh, I've never seen that.
Yeah, I know.
What? Well, yeah, you wouldn't laugh. You don't think you don't like funny things.
How does he get?
That was good.
Can I press
Anyone
the
get any more
button?
trash here?
Can I press the button?
Yes.
Well, that's it for these knobs. Please visit our Patreon page at patreon.com/theguitarknobs. Visit our website at theguitarknobs.com for all of our past episodes, 4 on the Floor blog, and other good stuff. You can connect with us on social too at our Facebook page and share your gear and stories on our Facebook group. Also, be sure to check out our Instagram at Guitar Knobs. Catch you next time.